Hi, I'm Chris Reid, CEO and Managing Director of ASX 300 company Neometals.
Chris, good to see you. There's a quick one today because you're whizzing through town on your way to Germany. You've just attended the
RBC Battery Metals Day.
Busy, as I understand it. Good for you?
Yeah, fantastic.
All the names you want to see?
Yeah, look, and there was about 350 people in the room, so it's a big show.
It's a big show. It's kind of interesting where the direction of generalist investors have gone, and where the banks are looking in, and obviously a lot of governments there as well. Compared to say precious metals at the moment, which you expect to be doing a little bit better than it is. Those conferences are empty at the moment. It's incredible. Look, I want to talk to you about just Barambi today. I'm sure we can catch up in the next couple of weeks or so on other matters. But today, Barambi, you made an announcement yesterday. Why did you feel the need to do that deal now?
Oh, so look, Barambi is, the world's second highest grade hard rock titanium deposit. We've held that asset for almost 20 years, drilling it out, doing all the studies. It can produce a feedstock, in reasonably short order, i.e. the resources on a grant of mining lease. We've got ministerial approvals that we're just getting extended in terms of timelines. It's pretty much shovel ready. And so, this was a real landmark for us. It's a bit like how we did Mount Marion. So we got Mount Marion, developed it up, and what you need is a confluence of equity markets and or the commodity price. So we don't have the equity markets at the moment, but we've got a fantastic commodity price. So what you have to do is you can't develop it until you get a take or pay offtake.
Give me a sense of the timing of this thing, because obviously DSO is the main constituent I guess agreement that you've got there, but you've also got a concentrate which you're going to be.
Yeah, correct. So, in all instances, you mine the ore and you can create DSO after you crush it. Yeah. Right. And then we're going to put it into a gravity concentrator on site to make a gravity concentrate. The previous study looked at downstream processing. Yeah. And we looked at that at Mount Marion as a way to guarantee that we could develop it. But the market is just so hungry. We've always held the conviction that titanium is a commodity that we wanted to be in, from a number of reasons. You get an intensity of use growth as the world moves from the second world to the first world. So you had China and India stories, and that's sort of come true. At the same time, you've had supply of natural mined mineral sands decreasing. We're just not replacing the reserves. So it's fantastic. The offtake, it enables a fast track startup.
Right.
Low capex, then move to the next stage of making concentrates. The off-taker, Ju Shing, is the key supplier to Baotai, who's the world's largest titanium metal producer. So your ultimate client is making the highest value product out of it. And so they've come to us and said, well, what do you need? And this is the minimum volume. This is the minimum time to get up. It reduces our capex, but we need a floor price.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, well, we can't wait for the concentrates in a year, 18 months.
Yeah.
So what do we do? And we said, well, look, we can mine, crush and screen and truck it, and you can do the beneficiation because they have iron ore beneficiation plants. This is not that materially different. It's just a titanium bearing iron ore.
Right, but the interesting thing about me is about the kind of, obviously, lessons learned from Marion in terms of IA process, but also DSO, people say, well, you're giving away all of the upside. But on the other hand, like you said a couple of times there, there's no kind of big capex outlay as a result now, but you still got optionality further down the line, right?
We will integrate. Yeah. I mean, you just got to recognise that you can't go and raise $400 million.
Right.
Right.
Now,
so you got to cut your cloth.
Yeah.
The commodity markets are great. The equity markets are not. Okay, well, we'll get started at a low capex. We'll make less margin. So on the DSO, we'll get actual delivered cost into China, including all the government royalties, plus a fixed margin. So we can't lose. Like for the DSO, we are just doing it for you.
Right. But there is that kind of thing, and this is what always intrigues me about companies in terms of with business plans and the strategies for delivering those business plans over time. Which is, you said, okay, it's a lower margin, but in terms of return on capital invested, it's a pretty smart move now because it gets money flowing, which in the context of all the other projects you've got going, I imagine you've got designs, right?
You de-risk the mine. You show you can do it.
Yeah,
and you can do it in stages. So that's essentially, what it's about for us. And so that we can have cash flow and be mining and be stockpiling whilst we build the concentrator, because the concentrator will take us 12 months to build.
Right. And in the context of today's market, equity is not there, but also kind of cost of capital is not quite there at the moment for most people, and certainly big projects too. I suspect people would raise an eyebrow, I suspect, if you went for that now. But what does that do for you in terms of the other projects you've got going on? Is it as a distraction at the moment, or is it quite easy
look,
to...
today I've just signed a lease for part of the next floor down, and that's essentially to put the Barambi team down in there as they build up.
So it's back in Perth?
Yeah, back in Perth.
Right,
we run it as a separate standalone business.
Right.
It's in its own subsidiary.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, for us corporately, we now just need to go and negotiate the full form. So we've got an advanced draft. We have to go up to China. We'll have to negotiate prepayments, what have you, to alleviate the need and the amount of capital that we would need to raise. And I think, it's likely, you've seen from our vanadium project that we're doing the debt and equity raising down in the special purpose vehicle so that we're not diluting the head company. I think the board would support that strategy for Barambi going forward.
Okay, and just talk to me about, in terms of the scale of Barambi, you've been sitting on a while, haven't been throwing a lot of money at it, but now you've decided to kind of move forward, start a process.
Yeah.
And in terms of the scale of the project versus what you have agreed with this new offtake agreement, does it restrict you in any way into the future? Because I imagine competitive tension in the titanium world will be high.
Look, the resource is 280 million tonnes, right? And that's down to 70 metres over 11 kilometres. We've got over 1,000 RC and diamond holes, right? It's a layered intrusion, right? So it was flat once and then got tilted up.
Yeah.
The government site, we've got drill holes down. The ore body still exists at 300 metres. And the government seismic lines indicate that it goes down 4 kilometres. So we're unlikely to run out of ore in my life or your children's, right? So taking year one and selling it as DSO, and then in terms of just selling concentrate only for initially 4 years, that another 4 years that then can be extended, it makes no difference really to the resource.
Okay, and with regards to, obviously, I think China's kind of back in favour again with Australia. There was a period where coal exports, iron ore exports into China was problematic. Now it seems like the door's open again, communication's open again.
They never really stopped the iron ore trade. There was less coal for a while. They weren't taking crayfish, red wine,
right,
or barley for beer, and so that's opening back up.
Right.
So I mean, China produces about half the world's titanium production, mainly in the form of titanium dioxide for paint, paper, pigments, plastics, etc. But increasing amounts are going into titanium metal, right? I mean, every generation of airplane, the frame has more and more titanium in it. It's light, it's strong.
Yeah.
And so, this is the agreement. So once we get to the offtake agreement, it'd be the largest offtake agreement ever written in the titanium industry. Now, the Rio Tinto produce a concentrate like ours, but they smelt it into slag. We're selling it to the Chinese, who will smelt it and produce a slag. The slag will then become sponge, then become metal.
Right.
So, and the two biggest titanium metal producers are China and Russia. And so the Americans have recently helped Rio fund a new titanium metal plant.
I bet. Let me ask you something about learning from Mount Marion. Okay, Mount Marion, the sale of Mount Marion afforded you the luxury of time because of the money that you received and the money you distributed as dividends and paid for the development of all the other projects that you're building up here in Europe. Okay. And obviously nickel and Australia too. Would you consider doing something like that with Barambi? You mentioned a few interested parties there that could be there for Barambi, but would you consider getting another wedge of money in to give you the comfort to do all the things that you want to do in terms of the expansion of the different projects that you've got going on? You've got Finland,
instead
Portugal,
of
Germany,
raising.
right? Instead of capital raising. So can you continue to be a dividend payer and have this expansive
Well, we
strategy?
we certainly have interest from a number of parties, both Chinese and non-Chinese. I expect this deal will catalyse any interest. So there is that tension. Ultimately, we've got to do what we think is in the best interests of the shareholders. I mean, we returned the nickel business back to the shareholders, and that afforded them a 50% increase in its value today. So, you know, I mean, if you do a demerger, then you limit the amount of money that you need to spend on. You will eliminate the amount of money that you need to spend on Barambi. So I think they get you to the same purpose, but the board would be open to it.
Okay, interesting. Well, look, I know you've got to head to Germany, so appreciate you making time for us. We'll see you soon.
No dramas. Keep well.